No, znaczy to po.
אוקיי. אז בואו נשים את הדברים אחורה, ואני אסדר את זה. פה מדי? או שטוב?
מה?
Is it too cold?
לא.
לא יותר עכשיו? מה? פיפי? פיפי?
לא, לא, אני בסדר.
לשתות? Okay, and took off the admission waiting room.
Good.
Oh,
Yeah, time.
Did you hear anything about that's nice?
People like it.
What?
Trump offered Robert Kennedy a deal.
Really? I don't know which one of them is worse. Didn't say. I can't believe this guy lost like
All-star game.
nothing. Hello.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Jerry.
How are you?
Quite warm.
Ari Alexander. We'll remember that again.
Yeah, I talked to him about Avi today. He said he's well aware.
Oh, of all the issues.
Yeah.
But was you aware that Avi was in the States?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of a sucky situation.
Good evening, Irene. How are you?
Hi, Irene Steinberg. Can't hear you.
Hi,
Is
I'm doing good, actually. I turned 80 years old today.
Oh, wonderful.
Mazel tov. You only have another 40 years to go. You think you could last?
No, thank you. Thank you. I it's like I don't know. I'm noticing the difference in
Since yesterday?
my physical abilities. Huh? Yeah. It's just-
My brother just sent me this cute little article And I just looked on my phone and I've done 11,000 steps today. And apparently if I do 10,000 steps 5 days a week, I'll live for 10,000 years.
How, it's like the humidity is
Oh,
just
I didn't walk.
impossible.
I walk early in the morning.
I was going out at 6:20 in the morning,
I was going
But
at 6:10, yeah.
but the
So another
thing
thing I
is,
want to tell you,
it's like even,
you know how Rabbi Astor is a real exercise guy and
yeah,
everybody else runs and bikes and they always yell at me because all I do is walk. So I tell them a racehorse lives for 18 years. A cheetah, the fastest animal on earth, lives for 9 years. A tortoise lives for 200 years. I'm taking the tortoise approach.
Jerry, what I've been thinking about all week is Richard Simmons
yeah.
Yeah, 1 year older than me, and he dropped dead.
of cardiac
Yeah.
arrest. So I'm telling people, don't exercise.
Tortoise approach.
Tortoise.
Well, I used to be able to walk 10,000 steps. Then I reduced to 5, but in this humidity, it's just impossible.
I walk in ShopRite or Stop and Shop. I just go around the
I walked at
city.
CVS today.
Go to Walmart.
Walmart is huge. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Costco.
Okay. Hi, Marge.
Hi, sorry I missed yesterday. I thought it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Your name is owner. Do you want to change your name?
So-
Yeah, how do you do
Now,
that?
was there a way that I can watch yesterday's after I watch today's?
Say again.
Is there a way that I can watch yesterday's?
Yes.
Because I missed,
We'll put it on the Federation webpage.
Yeah, I will edit it and put it maybe on a YouTube or,
so I just Google Federation of Eastern Connecticut.
no, we'll send a link in the next couple of days.
Good, because I felt so badly. I don't know why. I always assume that the week starts on Monday.
Don't worry about it. You can find me somewhere and I'll do it forever. Hi.
Because I'm really excited. I've always wanted to go to Israel, but now my physical condition, I need a walker. I'm not gonna
Ancient,
go,
never
be able
been
to
in
go.
Excuse me, I took a woman to Israel
that?
and she went around in a scooter.
Marge somebody.
She went around in a scooter, Eleanor Peel.
And one on a wheelchair.
And we took one in a wheelchair for several days. Yeah, we've done, in fact, many people have said to me, I should do a mission where we don't start at 8 in the morning, but we start at 10, we stop for lunch at 12, and we go back to the hotel at 3. And then we go to the pool. Instead of my usual missions, which are, we start at 8 in the morning and we go till 9 at night.
I think you need to turn the volume up and put it full screen.
You talking to us?
Hi, Lee. I want to see your face so I know who you are.
Yeah, half of these people aren't showing their faces.
I
More than
know.
half.
They didn't get to their hairdresser in time.
I mean, yeah, well, I was just finishing my lunch, believe it or not.
There, Barbara's
I
on
come-
now. Good.
I know,
She's ready for break.
I'm just gonna be listening to you. Don't worry if you see me or not,
There's Romana, there's Sherry.
I'm just gonna say hi, but your comment about the hairdresser was unfortunately spot on, so I just so you know I'm real. Okay, thanks.
Rachel, what's your last name?
It's louder.
Isaacs.
Thank
found
you.
it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know
member-
another young woman named Rachel Isaacs who lives in
Yes.
Maine.
Well, there's a Rabbi Rachel Isaacs, but that's not me. I'm a member of B'nai Israel in Bridgeport.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
I hope after you hear these three talks, you'll come on a real mission instead of a virtual mission.
Dinner, so video off.
Barbara, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, we're gonna keep our video off so you don't see us chewing.
You know, I ate my lunch while I was waiting, but I had company. I never get company. And I had company all afternoon. When one left, another came, then the next left, another came. And before I knew it, it was 5 o'clock and I hadn't had lunch yet. So, and being a diabetic, I'm not supposed to miss meals, even
No, you
though,
can't miss
though
meals.
I had lunch. I'll have supper after the Zoom. What can I tell you?
Jerry, Pat and I were talking about the first mission when we went to Israel, and El Al gave her a very hard time.
Yeah, well, not surprising.
Yeah.
I've taken a few people to Israel who were not only not Jews, but they were Muslims. And one of them was interrogated for an hour and a half,
Wow. Wow.
despite my protests and despite my Israeli approach to the whole thing.
Wow.
They talked to him for an hour and a half.
Every time my husband, we lived in Israel for 8 years. Every time he went to the airport, I had to go with him and walk with him through the whole security thing so he doesn't get stopped and interrogated.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time.
And he worked at Weizmann Institute.
Yeah.
He did his
Wow.
post-grad at the Weizmann Institute.
That he had 3 children at some point. That didn't matter. I had to go with him.
Yeah.
And
And
Pat and I
probably-
went to Bethlehem. Remember when we went
Yes.
to Bethlehem?
Yes, I remember you went to Bethlehem.
And you tried to talk us out of it. And I asked at the hotel desk if New York was safer, which was safer, Bethlehem or New York? And they said Bethlehem.
Yeah, well,
What would they say?
What do they know?
Some people still think that's true.
I think it's still true.
But we rented a cab. It's like
I
we
remember you
were
took a
in-
cab from the hotel to Bethlehem.
Yep. And he toured us around different places. It was an experience also, but there was a bomb in the morning in Bethlehem, but we were in the afternoon.
Well,
When
It's
was
still
that time
safe,
of that?
it's still
day?
safe to go to Bethlehem and to Beit Sahur. It's still safe,
How many years ago was that? That was in the 90s?
yes.
You know,
You were
one of my
50.
friends said that her son is.
You were
going to-
50, you might have been 46.
Yeah, yeah. One of my friends said that her grandson just went on Birthright Israel. He just left. He's older. He's at the older end. He's in medical school, and he wanted to go while he was still in medical school to talk to the doctors there and see the whole medical scene. So he went, and he's there now. So I guess that they're opening it up for Birthright again.
Okay, we're gonna start in 1 minute, so get yourselves comfortable and mute yourselves if you want to be able to answer the phone or not disturb us. If your dog barks. We shot Ella's dog, so he won't bark anymore. We took after the governor. Is it a governor? Who was the person that shot her dog and wrote about it? Yeah. All right.
My cat has a very soft meow, but I'm muting anyway.
Harriet, you were on and then you went off. Where'd you go, Harriet?
Very true.
Yeah, she was on.
She's on. They keep moving around, don't you?
Oh, there's Harriet. Okay. They keep, now I know why people have trouble. The boxes keep moving. It's like a TV show or something. It's a TV game. Okay. All right. We're going to start. And today the theme is Jerusalem. But in order to fully appreciate Jerusalem, I'm going to talk a little bit about the topography of Israel. So the first slide we're going to see is going to be the topography.
Just one second. This boy, sure.
There we go.
Sorry, I'm not sure. Screen it. My bad, I'm sorry, I was not attentive enough. Here we go.
So here you see the topography of Israel, and I'm going to plug my mouse in to Ella's computer so I can highlight things for you. There are three distinct topographical regions to Israel. There's the coastal plain, there's the central mountains, and then there's the Jordan Valley, which is the Afro-Asian Rift. And this is the lowest point on Earth here. And on the other side, we have the mountains of Moab, and here we have Jerusalem. So the mountain ridge goes north-south. The coastal plain goes north-south. But up here we have the Golan Heights and the Upper Galilee. So these mountains are the Galilee. These mountains are Hare Yehuda and Shomron, and this is Mount Carmel here. So we are going to be focusing on Jerusalem today, but the coastal plain plays an important role in Jerusalem because when they built the temple, particularly the first temple, all of the timber for it was floated down from Lebanon, from up here, down to Jaffa over here, and then carted up to Jerusalem. So that's the topography of the land. And the coastal plain, this area was where the Philistines were. And Akko was a landing point for the Crusaders, as was another Crusader castle here. And they came from the coast up to Jerusalem when they conquered Jerusalem, and they retreated from Jerusalem, and then they conquered it a second time. One of the interesting things about why geography is important is not just because it controls the flow of humanity, but because the invaders, the Crusaders, invaded with horses that had very, very heavy hooves. They were big workhorses like Percherons, like the Budweiser horses, and they were for the interior of France. They were for mountains, they were for plains, and all of a sudden, they're on the sandy coast. And on the sandy coast, their feet sunk into the sand. And the Arabian horses were much lighter, much smaller, had much smaller hooves, and they could run like crazy on the sand, whereas the European horses were trotting. They just wasn't the right armament to bring to this terrain. Okay, now we're going to go and do a timeline. You can see that it's 5,500 years old. Human habitation in Jerusalem goes back to 5,500 years ago. The first city wall was built around 4,000 years ago. And pre the Torah, we have mentions of Jerusalem in very ancient cuneiform tablets. The Jebusites are actually mentioned in the Bible, and they conquered Jerusalem at around 1200. But 1000 BC, or 3,000 years ago, 3,200 years ago, David conquers the city and declares a Jewish kingdom. Then David's son, Solomon, builds the first Jewish temple. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Jewish folklore. So some of the folklore about why the temple was built where it was. I'll show it to you in a minute. Where are the Bible quotes? There, but I have to go up all the way up. Okay, so here we have in the Bible, our earliest mention of Salem was Melchizedek. He was the king of Salem, which is thought to have been Jerusalem. And he was the priest of the God Most High. And he brought bread and wine out to Avram. And Avram was blessed by Melchizedek. And Avram then gave him a tenth of everything. And this biblical quote is echoed in Psalms, where God is known, renowned in Judah, Israel, and in Israel his name is great, and his tent or his home is in Salem, and his dwelling place is in Sion. And then we go back again to ancient times, where we hear God commanding Abraham to bring his son, his only son, Yitzchak, whom he loves, which there's a whole drash right there on your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. And he goes to Har Moriah, and he bounds him, and he almost kills him. But in the last minute, he's saved. However, this Har Moriah became, according to our tradition, the place where the temple was built. It's also known, if you look at maps from the early Middle Ages on, as the navel of the universe. When you see a map of the world, the center of the map is Jerusalem. So why did God choose that place to build the temple according to Midrash? The Midrash is that that flat piece of rock, which you could see if they were to let you into the Dome of the Rock, which you can't go in now. I brought groups in there in the past, but now only Muslims can go in. But if you go into the Dome of the Rock, you'll see that it's a big flat rock. And it was known as a threshing floor. It's where they brought the wheat and they beat it on this rock and took off all the wheat kernels and harvested it, and that's what they used to make flour. So the folktale that goes is that were two brothers who would bring their wheat to the threshing floor and would thresh the wheat. And one brother had many, many children and many wives. But he had the same number of fields or dunams as his other brother. His other brother had no wives, had no children. So the two brothers are meeting at the threshing floor. They're threshing their wheat. And they take the wheat back to their homes. And they're back in their tent with all of this harvest. And the brother who has no wives and no children says to himself, my brother has many wives and many children. He needs this food more than I do. I'm going to bring most of my harvest back to him. And he walks up to the threshing floor to cross over and go to his brother. The other brother says, my brother has no wives and no children. He's going to need to hire help to take care of him in his old age. I am going to bring him some of my harvest. And when the two brothers met at the threshing floor, they each realized what they were trying to do for each other, and they embraced, and God looked down at this point of love and said, this is where I will build my temple. So that's the Jewish midrash about that. Now, in the Tanakh, in Joshua, we have the first mention of Jerusalem as Jerusalem, the full word, Yerushalayim. And we have Adoni Tzedek, the king of Jerusalem, and the whole attack that went on with Jerusalem. When I bring groups to Jerusalem, I show them the model. And this is the first temple model. This is what they think the temple looked like. These are stables. This is the courtyard. This is the Holy of Holies in there. There is the eternal light inside there. And that's where once a year on Yom Kippur, the high priest, the Kohen HaGadol, would go in and would pronounce God's name, invoke God's name. When he went in, he had a rope tied to his leg. In case, God forbid, he died while he was in the Holy of Holies, and no one else could go into the Holy of Holies. So he had a rope on his leg so they could pull him out. Now, this is ancient Jerusalem with the gates, the four quarters, and the Dome of the Rock, which is where the temple used to stand, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is where the stables actually were. And I want to talk to you about the gates. To begin with, Damascus Gate. Why is it called Damascus Gate? It heads north, and if you walked out of this gate and just kept walking straight, you would end up in Damascus. This gate is called the Jaffa Gate. Why? Because if you walked out of this gate and went west, you would end up in Jaffa. This gate is called Zion Gate because Har Zion, Mount Zion, is outside of the old city, And if you walked out of this gate, you would go to Mount Zion. Now we get to some of the funnier names. Why is this called? Why is this called the Dung Gate? It's called the Dung Gate because the water would flow out of this gate and would flow all the way down to the Dead Sea. So this was literally the sewage gate. And all of the sewers in the old city were open sewers. And they all flowed through this gate and down to the Dead Sea. This is the Golden Gate, or the Gate of Mercy. This is the gate that the Messiah is supposed to come in. And the Muslims and the Christians, put cemeteries there in front of the gate to prevent the Jewish Messiah from coming back. And this is the Lion's Gate. Why? Because there were lions in Judah. In fact, the Lion of Judah is the symbol, and there are two big lions on this gate. When the 6-Day War occurred, which was really 3 two-day wars, 2 days against Egypt, 2 days against Jordan, and 2 days against Syria. In the 2 days against Jordan was when the old city was conquered, and the commanders were standing on the Mount of Olives over here, and they wanted to get to the Wailing Wall. This is what they really wanted to capture, was the Wailing Wall, and they wanted to recapture the Jewish quarter, which had been lost in the War of Independence. But the generals said, my soldiers are not going in through the Dung Gate, which, as you can see, was the closest to the Jewish quarter, the fastest way to get to the Wailing Wall, and the gate that we go in now all the time. When we bring groups, we park the bus right by the Dung Gate. We walk in this way and we get to the Western Wall. They went in through the Lion's Gate, through the Muslim quarter, came up here and captured it this way. Here's a view from the Mount of Olives of the Dome of the Rock. This is the famous Jewish cemetery where multitudes of great people are buried. What's unique about this cemetery is you're buried with your feet facing towards Jerusalem, so that when the Messiah comes and all of us are revived and returned to life, everybody lying in these graves will just have to stand up on their feet and walk to the temple. So everybody in this grave is head facing towards us and feet facing towards Jerusalem. This is a view of Jerusalem at night from the House Promenade. Now we're going to do a little bit of very modern Jerusalem. This is the Shuk Market. And this, I have to get to the very top here. I'm sorry. We didn't have this set. If show us something else. No, okay. Okay. One more. This is the Dome of the Rock. We go up there when we're told by the security people that handle tourism that it's okay to go up there. Sometimes they tell me, don't go up. Sometimes they tell me, go up, no problem. So this is the Dome of the Rock. True story. I took Reed McCluggage, Morgan McGinley, and a bunch of other people into the Dome of the Rock. Reed McCluggage was the publisher of The Day newspaper. And he was a libertarian and he was gung-ho for Israel. And he says, Jerry, why don't they build a third temple? To which I said, because the decorating committee would never be able to agree on how to decorate it. to which everybody in the group laughed, and we got thrown out for laughing. Can't laugh in the Dome of the Rock. I was able to bring 2 other groups in there, because when you go in there, that's when you tell the story of the sacrifice of Isaac. But now, the last time I went up, you had to be a Muslim to go in. Now, I want you to know that, I want to ask, do any of you know how you indicate that you are a Muslim? You hold up one finger. And what does this tell you? This tells you you believe in one God, Allah, and that you're not a Christian. So says, are you a Muslim? And I say, says, and I said, no, I'm not a Muslim. Nobody in the group, unless they wanted to lie, could get in to see the interior of the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock, by the way, was built to compete with a church that had been built in Istanbul. But that's a little diversion that I don't want to go into now. We, of course, worship in particular at the Wailing Wall, also known as the Western Wall. The Western Wall is the retaining wall for the Temple Mount, and it has 3 layers of stone, Solomonic, medieval, and Turkish. This is not outside, this is inside. To the left of the men's section of the Western Wall, there's an interior place where there are little Aronei Kodesh, holy arks put up for different little congregations that are actually remnants of congregations in Europe, and people are davening there all the time. Those might be pushkas. And the thing that's unusual for me is there's a tradition on Shavuot to study the Torah, the entire Chumash, the entire Tanakh, I'm sorry. So there's a tikkun, a compilation that you're supposed to study. And I took that tikkun one Shavuot, and I sat in this place, not all night, but until around 2 a.m. studying. And it was annoying, but I did it. And here's something very important. You write notes when you're at the Western Wall, and you put them in the cracks of the wall. This is Harry Leiser at the Western Wall. And everybody asks me, what do they do with the notes? And they're actually collected and buried, because there's a tradition in Judaism that anything that has God's name in it or is addressed to God is holy and cannot be treated like garbage. So it's buried. And some of you might know that we've buried books in the Beth El cemetery. We've buried books in a cemetery in Norwich. And that's where all those notes go, unless they're written by a president, in which case some wise guy steals the note and gets CNN to pay for them to reveal what the president wrote. Here's Gary Clymer with Sheila Wheeler and Ed Wheeler and me having breakfast in a hotel in Jerusalem. This is Professor Julian Koshigian Secor. The Armenian Quarter got 4 very good Armenian tile artists, and this is the studio of one of these tile artists. When you're in Jerusalem, you can have a variety of experiences. One of the great experiences is shopping in the shuk in Machane Yehuda, in the market, and then going to this home of a very small mixed couple. by mixed couple. She's Orthodox and her husband is secular, but they host small groups. And that's Todd being served a dish by Lisa Gawendo. We cooked the meal and then we had dinner there. This is Bashir's, a very famous cheese shop in Machane Yehuda that Ella actually went to give them.
Yeah, well, when the Machne Yehuda Shuk is like a staple and my favorite place in Israel, pretty much. So I go multiple times every time I go. And when we were young, my sister and I would go every Friday at 7:00 to do the shopping. And it had to be early because otherwise by 9:00, you couldn't even walk across the street. It was so full. And Bashir has been there forever. And because we were there every week, all the merchants knew us and we were kind of like friends with them. And Bashir was one of them. And he had a tiny little shop. And every time he saw my sister, he would call her like, come. And they, you know how they do it the other way? Come. They don't, I made you your special cheese that you asked me for. And of course, he doesn't remember us anymore. And they're a huge empire now.
Yes, they're in every mall in Israel. They're all over and they sell wine as well. Here's Ivan Schmidt and Mark Patnode cooking in this little house where we went to cook. This is a merchant in the Christian quarter of the old city that I became friends with. Bev Steinman's daughter was very friendly with him. They introduced us and I bring them, we visit them every time. That's Isabel Singer and Marcia Gibstein. Some of you might remember Joshua Benson and Aaron Rosenfield. And this is Nate Weiss and Shelley Weiss. A little story about why these two gentlemen made Aliyah. They're both from our community. So Israel is a very gay-friendly country. And Tel Aviv, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, is a very, very gay-friendly city. And Aaron is gay. So his parents sent him to Israel and said, I hope you find a husband. Josh had a very challenging issue with his pancreas. And he had a very unusual operation where pancreatic cells were taken from his pancreas before it was removed and were put in his liver. So he still has cells that produce insulin, but he's also on an insulin regimen as well. In America, the cost of his care, especially 10, 15 years ago, would have been astronomical. So in addition to them sending him to Israel to find a wife, they send him to Israel to be part of the national health system, where all of his very expensive medical care is fully paid for. Here's Meryl Mazzella, Jane Kirstein, go back, how do I make it? No. And they're cooking. I want to get back to the normal spots.
I think you're in drawing mode.
Yeah. What?
I think you want to go to the bottom where the pencil is and click
Yeah,
on it.
we can't see the pencil because of the. This.
Okay, here's the cooking group in Machane Yehuda. Now, this is the exit from Yad Vashem. And I took this picture because I wanted you to understand how important Yad Vashem is to the state of Israel. Every official visit of foreign diplomats or foreign military people includes a visit to Yad Vashem. And these people came out of the visit and they were looking out, and I asked them to pose for me. Okay, we have to recenter it. Hang on one second. Should I go back there and then you go back that way?
If you, because I'm just 1 second.
Jerry, when I lived in Jerusalem, my main shopping was done in Machane Yehuda. And whenever I would go to buy fish, I would take my neighbor and she would say to the fishmonger, "How is the fish today?" And he'd say, "Well, you know, my wife is not so good today." So we never bought the fish on those days.
Okay.
I don't know.
If everybody was fine, we bought the fish. We had a secret relationship with the fishmonger.
Okay, so I want to try and continue to take you through this. Now we have to go to the one that has all of the names on the floor.
Just. Ah,
Okay, well, let's keep going here. I apologize that I made it smaller. These are the steps leading up to the Temple Mount. When you hear the songs of ascent or the psalms of ascent, these are the steps that you would go up. And that's Kobe Abelman there, whose parents ran a drugstore in New London, and he made Aliyah. He retired and he became a guide. To become a guide in Israel, you have to go to school for 2 years. And Kobe passed the exam and became a guide. This is Marcy Wallman and Marcia Reinhardt. They happened to be in Israel while we had a mission and we met up with them. This is Henny Simon and her friend, and I think that's Lila Shepherd. And this is Peppy Green, me in one of my thinner days. And this is in front of the Wailing Wall. And here you could see in the background, the very lower course is the Solomonic rocks. These are the medieval rocks, and the small ones are the Turkish stones. Okay, now go down. This is Zion Gate. And you can see all the bullet holes around Zion Gate. Zion Gate led to the Jewish quarter. And the Haganah tried very hard to protect the Jewish quarter and keep it in the hands of the new state of Israel. They failed. And the Jewish quarter residents were captured by the Jordanians, but were eventually returned to Israel. And this, we're going to make this bigger. Make it even bigger. Or smaller a little bit. This is the floor of the King David Hotel, where they take the people who signed into the hotel. It's like the equivalent of like the Dorchester Hotel in London or the Waterford, the Waldorf Hotel in New York. This is where you stay if you're somebody. So here you see Al Gore's signature. Here you see Danny Kaye's signature. Here you see Marc Chagall's signature. Here you see Shimon Peres's signature. Here you see Golda Meir's signature. And make them. I can't make out who that is. So Obama has his signature there. Lots of people have their signature there. Okay. So now I want to go back to the timeline. What you see in the timeline, can you move this away somehow? All right. What you see in the timeline is that Jerusalem is in fact one of the most conquered cities in the world. David conquers the city. Solomon builds a temple. The Assyrians conquer Samaria. The refugees from Samaria flee to Jerusalem. Then the Babylonians destroy Jerusalem and destroy the first temple. But when the Persians take over, Cyrus the Great allows the Jews to come back to Jerusalem and build the second temple. What you might not know is that all the Jews didn't come back. A lot of them stayed in Persia. Nehemiah encourages Jerusalem to be rebuilt, and Jerusalem is rebuilt until Alexander the Great conquers it again. And then we have the miracle of Hanukkah and the Shmonayim defeat the Seleucids and again take over Jerusalem. And then the last most difficult loss was when the Romans conquered Jerusalem and made King Herod a vassal king. And King Herod restores the second temple, adding the retaining wall. And finally, the Romans demolish the second temple. And they rebuild the city as Aelia Capitolina, a capital city. Nothing to do with Jews. In fact, the Jews were expelled from Jerusalem. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which we've walked into several times, was built in 335. The Persians captured the city. The Christians recapture Jerusalem. And then the Muslim Caliph Omar enters Jerusalem, and it goes under Muslim rule, and the Dome of the Rock is built right over the site of the two temples. The Crusaders come, conquer Jerusalem. Saladin captures Jerusalem from the Crusaders. Everybody talks about Saladin as an Arab. He was not an Arab. He was a Kurd. He was from Kurdistan. The Crusaders recaptured Jerusalem twice until it falls to the Muslims. And then the Ottomans take it over in 1516 and hold on to it for 401 years until they lose it in World War I. The British take it over at the end of World War I and hold it through World War II until the partition of the city and the War of Independence. Now, stop sharing. Stop sharing. Okay. Now I wanna talk about the War of Independence because it's an excruciatingly important and still divisive topic. When the partition plan was voted on by the United Nations, Jerusalem was declared an international city. And David Ben-Gurion accepted that designation. Raise your hand if you know in which city the Declaration of Independence was read. Somebody knows it. Where was it, Chuck?
Tel Aviv.
Right, Tel Aviv. So Ben-Gurion declares the state of Israel in Tel Aviv. Now, when you argue about history, as you always do, you want to twist historical facts in your favor. So you could say that David Ben-Gurion declared the state of Israel in Tel Aviv because he had recognized Jerusalem as an international city. And you might be right. You could also say, as right-wing Israelis have said to me many, many times, no, Jerry, that's not why he declared independence in Tel Aviv. He declared independence in Tel Aviv because it was too dangerous to do it in Jerusalem because Jerusalem was under siege. Both answers are probably correct. The key to Jerusalem being held by Israel, at least the western half of Jerusalem, was that the Israelis had to prove that they had access to Jerusalem. And the way they got access to Jerusalem was having an American military man named Mickey Marcus build a road that went from Latrun to Jerusalem along the side of a mountain. And it's called the Burma Road because the mountains of Burma were where all sorts of paths were. And Mickey Marcus built this road. One night, actually, he had to take a leak. He went outside of the boundaries of the camp to take a leak in the woods. And as he was coming back into the camp, the guard asked for the password to get into the camp. Mickey Marcus, not knowing Hebrew, did not understand what the guard said, and did not give the password, and the guard shot and killed Mickey Marcus. But that man, an American military officer, is the reason that Jerusalem stayed partly in the hands of the Israelis. There's another reason, which has a very strange resonance now in the Gaza war. And that is that the Haganah, or was it the Palmach? It might have been the Palmach, a military leader of the Palestinians was killed right outside of Jerusalem. And when word of his death got out, it demoralized the Arabs that were fighting in the Jerusalem area, completely demoralized them. And they did not succeed in holding on to the city, which is why when you hear about the Israelis trying so hard to cut off the head of the snake now, some of them are still thinking back to what happened in Jerusalem, where they killed the top military leader during the War of Independence and totally demoralized the Jordanian Legion. Today it has the opposite effect. Yes. Yes. So Jerusalem today is, I want to go back to this sharing of the screens. No, but I don't like the, I want the photos. Jerusalem today is a city that is alive and vibrant, and it's actually a microcosm of what could happen, in that it is actually a bi-national city. If you're in West Jerusalem, you're in a predominantly Jewish Jerusalem. If you're in East Jerusalem, you're in a predominantly Arab Jerusalem. And they're all living together. They're all living together. And the idea that the Likud government had, that if they created economic life in Gaza, the Gazans would not want it to be destroyed, is actually what happened in Jerusalem. The merchants in Machane Yehuda and the merchants in the old city are both very prosperous when the city is at peace and there's no terror. And when there is terror, both sides of the city suffer terribly. So Jerusalem is really a bi-national city. And the argument that they are having to this day is the Palestinians are insisting that Jerusalem will be the capital of Palestine. The Israelis are insisting, no, Jerusalem is our capital, and it will never be the capital of Palestine. And then they try to finesse it, and there's a little village right outside of Jerusalem, and they wanted to make that the capital of Palestine. Right now, the Palestinian Authority sits in Ramallah, which literally means high God. Literally means high God. And Israel declares all of Jerusalem to be its capital. There was a big deal when Trump officially recognized all of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And 2 or 3 other countries moved their embassies to Jerusalem. But the vast majority of embassies in Israel are still located in Tel Aviv. That includes the Russian embassy, the Chinese embassy, all of the European embassies are still all in Tel Aviv. And Jerusalem has not been recognized by the world as the capital of Israel. However, the geography, stop sharing. The geography of this conflict is such that even though very strict Orthodox Jews will not go on the Temple Mount because they're afraid they're going to step on the holy place where the high priest went on Yom Kippur, there are Jews that will thump their chests and say, we have every right to pray on the Temple Mount as much as the Muslims have a right to pray on the Temple Mount. And you might remember that Ariel Sharon went and took a stroll on the Temple Mount. And that started the Intifada. And the first Intifada and the second Intifada destroyed economic life in Jerusalem and destroyed economic life in West Jerusalem. So there is a reality that I think is very good in that the Arabs in East Jerusalem are enjoying a standard of living far beyond the Arabs in Gaza and the Arabs on the West Bank. And that standard of living is because of tourism. Muslims make pilgrimage to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They go to Mecca, they go to Medina, and they go to Jerusalem. Christians make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. When you walk through the streets of Jerusalem, you will see people carrying a cross and following the Via Dolorosa and stopping at each station of the cross and singing their hymns and songs. And Jews make pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And they go to the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall, and as the joke goes, they bang their head against the wall. The religious geography of that city is such that in the end, compromise is the only thing that will work. The only thing that will work. And that's why maybe at some point, the city of peace will really become the city of peace. But in the meantime, it's definitely the city of tourists. And it's a remarkable city. On the western side, we have Yad Vashem. We have the Israel Museum. We have Ben Yehuda Street. We have a thriving Western Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem. And then you go into the old city and you could walk from the Armenian quarter to the Muslim quarter, to the Jewish quarter, to the Muslim quarter. And everybody is shopping and everybody is doing their pilgrimage. I often warn people when they walk through Jerusalem to be prepared for the most rude encounters that you can ever imagine. And they say, what do you mean rude? And I said, well, I want you to think of this. The Jews are rushing to get to the Western Wall because they want to daven Shachris or Mincha or Marav at the wall. So they're rushing to get there. The Orthodox Christians are marching through the Christian quarter, banging their poles and marching into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And the Muslims are rushing to get to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. And all of these people are convinced that their prayers will be heard if they're said at that site. And they will push you out of the way to get there on time. So on the one hand, it's fascinating and amazing if you stand on the side and you see all of these people rushing to get to their place of prayer. It's like, wow, this is crazy. And on the other hand, it's beautiful because all these people are quite convinced in their hearts and in their minds that they have to be at the Kotel, at the Western Wall, or they have to be in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or they have to be at Haram el Sharif, at the Dome of the Rock, to say their prayers, and those prayers will be heard. So now I'm going to tell you a joke, which I often tell on missions. I tell a lot of jokes on missions. Begin went to visit the Pope in Rome, and he came into the Pope's office, and the Pope said, "Would you like to talk to God?" And Prime Minister Begin said, "I would love to talk to God." And the Pope picked up the phone, called his secretary, and asked him to get God on the phone. And after 20 or 30 minutes, the Pope's phone rings back, and he's told God is on the phone, and he hands the phone to Prime Minister Begin. Begin has a private conversation with God, which was not recorded, because you're not allowed to record things in the Pope's office. Then the Pope came to Israel, and he was received in the Prime Minister's office. And Menachem Begin said to the Pope, "Would you like to talk to God?" And the Pope said, "I would love to talk to God." And Begin picked up the phone, punched in 7 numbers, and handed the phone to the Pope. And the Pope said, "So fast?" And Begin said, "From here, it's a local call." Okay, good. Some of you laughed.
That's
All
in
right.
the old days when
Yeah, no,
called to
right. You don't have to do a long distance call anymore. Okay, are there any questions, any frustrations, anything you wish I covered? Speak now or call me later. Anybody- anything?
I just want to say thank you. This was wonderful. It's really appreciated.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. All right. I hope to see you again sometime on a mission to Israel. The Federation is going to go back to Israel at some point, but in the meantime, we're going to Italy. So keep that in mind. End of October, early November, we're doing a trip to northern Italy, and it'll be very exciting. Very beautiful.
And
Okay.
also meeting here tomorrow night.
Say again?
We're also meeting back here with you.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow night is the last night. And I'll tell you a little story. Tomorrow night is Tel Aviv, where I told you Ben Gurion declared the state of Israel's independence. When I first started doing missions to Israel, we would start in Tel Aviv, go to Haifa, and finish in Jerusalem. And there was a slight religious high from doing it in that order. But when people left Israel, with Jerusalem being the last place that they visited, they came back from Israel thinking of it as a very religious experience. And that didn't sit well with me. So I decided I'm going to change the order. There are 3 major cities in Israel: Haifa, Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv. And the way they're classified is in Haifa, you work, in Jerusalem, you pray, and in Tel Aviv, you play. So now the missions are Haifa, Jerusalem in the center, in the middle, and Tel Aviv at the end. So when you leave Israel, you're leaving modern Israel. But the heart of the mission, the center of the mission, is still Jerusalem. And we always try and do Shabbat in Jerusalem, because Shabbat in Jerusalem is much more special than Shabbat in Tel Aviv, right? Yeah, much more special. You know how we might have resented blue laws when we were growing up as kids in New York or Philadelphia or wherever? Well, let me tell you something. In Jerusalem, there are blue laws. Shabbos in Western Jerusalem is Shabbos. Almost no traffic, everybody walking, everybody being nice. It's a unique experience. So we always do Shabbos in Jerusalem, but we always finish the mission in Tel Aviv, which is a wonderful, incredible city. And we'll talk about that tomorrow night. Erev Tov, everybody.
And happy birthday, Irene Scheinberg.
80. Irene, put your face on again so everybody can see. Turn on your camera.
It's on.
There you are. Okay.
Happy birthday.
Howard, your sister is 80. How old are you, Howard? No, you got to unmute. Howard, unmute.
He's 19 months younger than me.
Oh, all right. So he's 78. All right, you'll get there. You'll get there. So Irene, bis 120.
It depends on what happens in November.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Good.
You might need depends when you're 120. Trump needs it now already, but that's okay. All right. All right. All right, everybody. Zygazon, thank you very much.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Night,
you,
night.
Jerry. And
Thank you.
special thanks to Ella for technical support.
Yes.
Yes,
she's been
Bye,
awesome.
Lato.
Hey, Ella, where are you?
I'm here hiding in the
Thank you.
shadows.
She's been wonderful. Okay, take care, everybody.